indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the clerk please call the roll?
Heffinger.
Here.
Lamb.
Here.
Rose.
Here.
Shields.
Here.
Simpson.
Here.
Starcher.
Here.
Coin.
Here. Reading of the minutes,
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields.
I move that the minutes from the regular meeting of April 22nd, 2019, and the special meeting of April 24th, 2019, as prepared and submitted by the clerk, be approved.
Second.
Any discussion on the approval of the minutes? Will the clerk please call the roll on the approval of the minutes?
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Starcher.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Reports of standing committees. Finance met prior to council and we meet again in 2 weeks. Health, safety, and sanitation, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled, nothing to report.
Public properties, Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mr. President. No meeting scheduled, no report this evening.
Special legislation, Mr. Lamb.
Thank you, Mr. President. Nothing to report, but the special legislation meeting on the LGBTQ proposed legislation will be held on June 17th, which is a Monday at 7 o'clock. June 17th at 7 o'clock.
Thank you. Streets and sidewalks, Mr. Heffinger.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have no meeting scheduled and no report at this time.
Thank you. Water and utilities, Mr. Starcher.
Thank you, Mr. President. No report, no meeting scheduled this time.
Emerging technologies, Mr. Rose.
Thank you, Mr. President. Looking to schedule a meeting on the 19th of June with the Port Authority representative for the fiber optics network that's moving from the south to the north and how it can and will improve the city of Medina. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, request for council action. We have several for finance, 1986, budget amendments, 1988, fiscal year 19 CDBG allocation grant application, 1989, request to rezone 216, 222, and 226 South Jefferson Street, R3 to MU, 1990 MCRC program activity rate change proposal, 1991 amendment number 11 for Delta Airport Consultants for the North Detention Basin, 1992 accept ODOT resolution regarding zoning requirements for State Route 18 project, 1993 increase PO 2019-513 to Ohio Regional Development Corp fiscal year 17 CHIP, and one for special legislation. We have 1994 amend codified ordinances regarding building demolitions. Report of municipal officers. Mayor Hamill.
Thank you, Mr. President. The parking deck construction got delayed a little bit, as you heard in finance, due to the rebid, but we expect to have it out here shortly and then give 4 weeks for the responses and then back to council for approval. That's going to adversely affect the parking in and around the city hall here, as well as the lot between Sully's Patio and Porter's Shoes during the entire construction project. There are long-term lots at the southeast corner of West Liberty and South Elmwood, the lot on the west side of the 200 block of South Elmwood, across from the former Napa, as well as the existing parking deck behind the Common Pleas Court. This project is expected to last into the beginning of 2020. The Medina County Fiber to the Home is taking place in Seville that Councilman Rose mentioned. In Seville, as well as Guilford and Westfield townships, they expect that build out of those 3 jurisdictions to take about 18 months. Their plan is to continue to install them in Medina County with a projected completion of the entire county in 5 years. And the demand and prioritization of this is going to be based on consumer surveys requesting the services. So to take that survey and help Medina's chances to move up the list, if you go to the fiber website, which is www.medinafiber.com, you must enter your address first, and then they'll give you an option to complete the survey. The proposed project will bring much needed competition for internet, TV, and phone services to our community. Broadband Neighborly is partnering with iFiber on this project, and Medina County is an attractive market due to the publicly owned fiber ring that's already in place in our county due to the investments of Medina County and the 3 cities in Medina County. This week, May 12th through 18th, is National Police Officer Memorial Week. And I'd just like to publicly thank all the police officers for their work day in and day out to keep our county safe. The farmers markets started, and they'll be every Saturday now until the fall from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. on the square. On Saturday, May 18th from 7 to 8 p.m., the Rolling Thunder has a candlelight vigil on Public Square, and it's to recognize those veterans who are still missing in action. The Medina County Roadrunners Half Marathon and 5K is set for the following Saturday, May 25th, and the half marathon starts about 6:30, and the 5K shortly thereafter. Memorial Day, which is May 27th this year, at 10 a.m. there's a Memorial Day parade. It starts on the square and goes out to Spring Grove, where there's a ceremony at the flag and the Veterans Memorial. And then at 1:15, the Vietnam Veterans Memorial dedication outside of the Medina County Veterans Service Office at 210 Northland Drive. It's been totally redone and will be rededicated at that service at 1:15 in the afternoon. And then last but not least, on Wednesday, May 29th, from noon to 2, there's going to be a Drug Court Awareness Day up on Public Square. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Durham, Director of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. President. There's one item on the agenda that I'll address when we get there, and there is a budget meeting tomorrow.
Thank you, Mr. Huber, Law Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you, Chief Kinney, Police Department.
Thank you, Mr. President. As Mayor Hanwell noted earlier, Police Memorial Week is this week. It's May 12th through May 18th. Police Memorial Week was enacted by President Kennedy in 1962 to honor police officers who have lost their lives in the line of duty. This Friday at 7 p.m., the See a Youth event will take place at the courthouse on Public Square. The event's organized by local youth to show appreciation for fallen officers. If the weather is bad, the event will take place at Highland High School Auditorium. Also, the annual Kids Day of Safety and Play will be June 1st at the Farmers Market on Public Square. The event will start at 9 a.m. and end at 2 p.m. Kids Day of Safety and Play is a collaboration between Main Street Medina and the Cleveland Clinic. There will be exhibitors with interactive demonstrations highlighting safe living. Additionally, local safety forces will be in attendance with police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances. It'll be a great opportunity for the community to interact with our safety officers, as well as the kids to explore the fire trucks, police cars, ambulances, and the variety of other safety forces that'll be there. So I hope to see you there. That's all I have.
Thank you. Mrs. Marshall, Economic Development Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. Mr. Mendel, Planning and Community Development Director.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you, Chief Painter, Fire Chief.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have no report.
Thank you, Mr. Wright, Recreation Center Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do have a report, just a couple updates. The Memorial Outdoor Pool is scheduled to open on Memorial Day from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. We are selling season passes now at the rec center and day passes. The schools have contracted with a paving company to repair the areas at the front entrance of the rec parking lot and other problem areas. This will be completed after school lets out with a possible start date of June 3rd. Please note that the only temporary entrance and exit for the rec will be the exit at the PAC at that time. The next scheduled Rec Advisory Board meeting will be this Thursday, May 16th at 7:30 a.m. at the Rec Center. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Worley, Parks and Recreation Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just two updates. First, I wanted to remind park users of our newly amended ordinance for park restrictions that says dogs in city parks must be restrained by an 8-foot leash and be held in your hand unless they are inside the fence at the Memorial Dog Park. That was effective May 8th. So please be aware of that change. And then secondly, our splash pads are scheduled to open Memorial Day weekend. Fred Greenwood Park will be open from 11 a.m. to 8 p.m. and Ray Mellert Park will be open from 12 until 8 p.m. There will be a new activator bollard installed at Fred Greenwood Park where you'll actually have to go up and push the button to turn the splash pad on to help avoid some maintenance problems that we've had over the year. And we will have a scheduled shutdown June 10th, 11th, and 12th in order to install that bollard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gladys, Building Official.
Thank you, Mr. President. I do not have a report.
Mr. Patton, City Engineer.
Thank you, Mr. President. We started the West Smith Road Project Phase 3, the phase between Commerce and Lake Road, a couple of weeks ago. Today we did close, excuse me, that section of Lake Road. I'm sorry, that section of West Smith between Commerce and Lake. Both intersections are open, but the road is closed. There are detour signs put up. The intersection itself at Commerce and Smith does get rebuilt. So at some point we will have to impact traffic through there, but we will let the public know when that is scheduled. Thank you.
Mr. McCauley, Service Director.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Sanitation Department began the yard waste program for this season. We ask that the material are placed in containers that are clearly marked and visible, and please place the contents on the tree lawn the same day as our regular trash pickup. Additionally, the Water Department is currently proceeding with their hydrant flushing program for the season. They are operating in Ward 4 currently, the West Sturbridge, Oak, Dover, Waterbury area. At times, folks may see discolored water, so we advise them to flush cold water through a faucet until the water runs clear. If there's any further questions or concerns, the folks can call the water office at 330-722-9081 during business hours. Thank you.
Thank you. Notices, communications, and petitions. We have one for liquor permit, not to object to the issuance of a D2 permit to Grab and Go Firewood LLC, doing business as Grab and Go Beverage and Market, 236 North State Road.
Move not to object.
Second, not to object.
Discussion. Will clerk please call the roll on the liquor permit, not to object to the liquor permit?
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Starcher.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yeah.
Lamb.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Unfinished business, there's none. Introduction of visitors. Members of the public will be permitted the opportunity to speak on any issue or concern which pertains to the city during the portion of the council agenda devoted to introduction of visitors. All comments shall be directed to the chair, and a reasonable time limit of approximately 5 minutes will be imposed. If there is a group, please appoint a spokesperson. Speakers should approach the front right microphone and state their name and address so it can be entered into the minutes. Members of the public will be afforded the opportunity to comment on other portions of the meeting as determined by the chair or by a vote of the majority of council members present. Is there anybody that wishes to address council at this time? Yes, sir.
Good evening. My name is Adam Kristowski. My address is 985 Norwegian Wood Drive. So first, thank you all for the opportunity to come and speak. Thank you all, City Medina, for all your services. So it's been about a week since I last spoke with some representatives here at my ward's more specific council meeting. So I live in Strawberry Fields on Norwegian Wood Drive, which borders Carlisle Brake and Friction. About 6 months ago, they completed a 150,000 square foot expansion, and since then, the amount of noise at all hours of the day, 7 days a week, has gotten to what I would call, has been at an unacceptable level. At the last meeting, I was here. I had the opportunity to speak also, and some of my neighbors were also here. I'm sorry if some of the people may have come off a little bit more passionate than others, but I think it illustrated the point that the noise level and the amount of noise that we're getting is pretty crazy. So at the time, what the point of discussion was, or the action item was, city council or members of the city were going to reach out to Carlisle and see if they could arrange some kind of a meeting with them so we could discuss some of our concerns and some of our issues. And I was just curious to know whether or not there had been any action on that. I know that, nothing changes quickly, nothing changes overnight. I understand it's only been a week, but I just want to say, Friday night, my 5-year-old son cried himself to sleep because he could not take the noises because it sounded like a helicopter was landing on my house. So, I just think that as a tax-paying citizen, we have the right to a decent night's sleep. So, my question would be, has there been any action or any discussions with Carlisle on whether or not we might, representatives from my neighborhood or the city might be able to meet with them to come to some kind of an understanding or come to some solutions as far as how we could, move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Shields.
We did mention last week that Mr. Gladish, who's been the main contact, he was out at the office last week for training. This is his first day back, so we were going to meet and talk about setting up a meeting with Carlisle.
Okay.
So I'm sure they'll be in touch with you.
Yeah. So then, do you know when we could expect to maybe hear?
I
about
don't.
anything
This
moving
was
forward?
Mr. Gladish and I haven't even had a chance to talk yet. This was his first day back, but our goal is to reach out and see if we can schedule a meeting. So, and we did say we would make sure everybody in the neighborhood is aware of the meeting.
Okay.
So,
thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to address council at this time? Okay, introduction and consideration of ordinances and resolutions. We have Resolution 7419, a resolution authorizing adoption of the Medina County 2019 All Hazard and Flood Mitigation Plan update.
move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Who's doing this one? Is it just a regular plan update that, I guess from the county, there's really nothing to say about it. We do this annually, so.
Right.
Okay. Any further discussion on that? I mean, I guess there's not much to talk about.
Want to have a discussion?
I don't think so. I mean, it sounds kind of
We could.
a little dry on that one, but will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the resolution?
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Starcher.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Resolution 74-19 passes 7-0.
Ordinance 7519, ordinance amending section 3102E of the Salaries and Benefits Code of the City of Medina, Ohio relative to salary schedule pertaining to lifeguards at the Medina Community Recreation Center.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion.
Mr. President,
Mr. Shields?
the emergency clause has been requested. I move to add it this time.
My second includes emergency clause.
Discussion on the emergency clause and the ordinance. Mr. Wright.
Thank you, Mr. President. As discussed briefly at our budget hearing in the last finance meeting on April 22nd, this ordinance is to increase the lifeguard starting rate from the minimum wage of $8.55 an hour to $9.46 an hour. The rate is based on a report from the Ohio Parks and Recreation Association study from 2018. In that study, it was $9.18 an hour on average, plus the 25 cents for the 2019 minimum wage puts it at about $9.43. Our closest RC code for the rec center is a $9.46, which is an RC 14. So it'll be $9.46. So that is the code we'd like to start the lifeguards at. The current lack of lifeguards has already caused our competition pool to have closures of 19 hours a week for the past couple weeks. So we hope to make this change as soon as possible, which is why we requested the emergency clause. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the emergency clause?
Starcher.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Simpson.
Yes.
Starcher.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Ordinance 75-19 passes 7-0.
Ordinance 7619, ordinance amending section 90301B3 of the codified ordinance of the City of Medina, Ohio relative to repair and reconstruction of red brick streets.
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Mr. Patton, this is you. Is it Mr. Huber too? We'd like to hear from you a little bit, Mr. Patton, but let's hear from Mr. Huber.
Thank you, Mr. President. This ordinance changes the procedure for how we decide whether or not to assess on red brick streets in the city of Medina. It takes away and changes the previous procedure that required the resident adjacent property owners gathering together for a petition on the question of assessment. I think the previous procedure could become adversarial in the way that it is applied, and in this instance, to some extent, did become adversarial, with neighbors having different opinions about what to do with their street. This change places the procedure under the umbrella of the Ohio Revised Code, and the city simply follows the state law as to whether there will be assessment and how assessment occurs. It also gives to the city council the ability to not assess. So if you pass a resolution of necessity which calls for assessment, you would simply follow the revised code procedure as to how that's applied. And if you don't assess. You simply don't pass a resolution of necessity. Additionally, in the future, Medina City Councils could change this ordinance again if they decided to, which is appropriate because we should not be binding future city councils on all of these issues. But at this point, I would respectfully assert that changing this procedure is for the better.
Thank you. Any further discussion or comment? Mr. Patton?
Really nothing other than to mention this did come out of our discussions about South Broadway. Currently, there are only 2 red brick streets, the other one being North Elmwood.
Thank you. And I believe we discussed a little bit about how at least this council is under the opinion that the red brick streets in the city shall remain red brick, and the city probably would be paying the cost of those. And did we ever get an updated cost on the difference between concrete and red brick? I think you were talking about $230, but you thought it might be less than that. Are we still around the $230 number, or do we get a little less than that, or do you have an idea?
We do believe it's going to be a little less than that. We don't have a final number yet, but we anticipate it's going to be lower than I think it was 210 we had before.
Thank you. And I believe we talked about language regarding that. We believe these are historical and they're significant value to the city of Medina, but I don't know if this is the appropriate ordinance to put that in. I think it would be a different one about the historic nature of the brick streets. I'm not sure. Anybody have any idea on that? Anybody have any opinion on that? Because this sets out that we have the ability, of course, under Ohio law to assess. Then we have the ability not to assess, but it also says how we deal with brick roads because we didn't have anything that talked about how we dealt with brick roads. Mr. Heffinger.
Mr. President, I think it's important that we do make sure that we pass at least something that says why we did this time around, making sure that we put out there that for historical reasons we are preserving these roads. That way future councils, they may not be bounded by the rule, but at the same time they understand what we went through to get to this point.
And I believe that ordinance will be the ordinance when we approve the reconstruction of the South Broadway. At that time, that's when that language would be stuck in that reconstruction because we would be paying for it. So we would explain why we're paying for it at that time. So, yeah. Okay, is there any further discussion or comment on this ordinance? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of ordinance?
Coin.
Yes.
Heffinger.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Starcher.
Yes.
Ordinance 76-19 passes 7-0.
Ordinance 7719, ordinance amending ordinance number 19518, passed December 10th, 2018, amendments to the 2019 budget.
Move to approve.
Second.
Mr. Durham?
Thank you, Mr. President. There are 2 amendments. The first is to pay for the airport detention basin project or the engineering for that project, and the second is a pass-through of a grant.
Any further discussion or comment? Will the clerk please call the roll on the adoption of the ordinance?
Heffinger.
Yes.
Lamb.
Yes.
Rose.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Simpson.
Yes.
Starcher.
Yes.
Coin.
Yes.
Ordinance 77-19 passes 7-0.
Council comments? Mr. Starcher?
Thank you, Mr. President. As Mayor Hanwell and Chief Kenny mentioned, this week is Police Memorial Week. There are 4 Medina County law enforcement officers who have lost their life in the line of duty. They're John Gates, Joseph Baca, Carl Summers, and Mark Decker. John Gates was a Medina police officer. He's commemorated by a plaque on City Hall wall behind us here. The Light Ohio Blue campaign coincides with activities associated with Police Week. This year's campaign runs from Wednesday, May 8th to Thursday, May 16th, so we still have time to participate in that a little bit. I'm doing so by wearing blue, obviously. There are several ways to support Light Ohio Blue. One's easiest is to place a blue light bulb in your porch light and leave it on in the evening. Second is place blue ribbons on your mailbox, nearby columns or posts. And then lastly, the third way is Wednesday, May 15th is actually Police Memorial Day. I encourage all Medina City employees to wear blue and tell your friends, family, and neighbors why you're doing that. This shows support for law enforcement officers, not just in Medina, but throughout the United States. And I'd personally like to thank all members of the Medina Police Department, civilian and sworn officers, for their dedication to the city of Medina. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Heffinger?
Thank you, Mr. President. I want to start by thanking all of our police officers and all of our safety service people that continually are out there every single day for us in the city. And I also want to talk about, in an effort to continually make this city more accessible, accountable, and efficient, we started doing the farmers market tables, and that was this past weekend. We had the first one. Mr. Nino Piccoli and I spent our Saturday at the market. It was turned out to be a beautiful day, and the people at the market seemed really appreciative that we were there. A lot of them were surprised to see us to begin with, so they weren't prepared to have a lot of hard questions, but they said they'd be back later with more, and they were expecting us to be there. So I'm excited to see how it works out for the rest of the summer. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Simpson?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to echo what Councilman Starcher said, and just to assure the police department that I'm sure this body will do whatever it can to continually to keep all our safety services safe. But we do hold the purse strings in in all cases, and I don't think we've ever turned down any requests for safety items. And I know me personally, and I think I can speak for everybody here. Anything that we can do to keep our officers and all our safety forces safe, we will do so positively. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. Lamb?
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. Same thing as Denny. I walk my dog. I don't know, for 40 years I've had a dog, not the same dog, but I've walked that dog at night around. It would be amazing. I have thought of this frequently, though. I walk my dog at night, sometimes late at night, and I walk around my block or my neighborhood, and I have occasionally thought, how fortunate we are, because I've never considered not walking my dog or going out at night or walking through my neighborhood because I've always felt safe. And, like a lot of things that happen in this community, it's not a happy accident that I can do that and other people can do that and feel safe. It's because all the pieces have been put in place and the people have been put in place in order for that to happen. So it is certainly a pretty important thing, for us to recognize. And additionally, I just have these comments. We started a partnership to do laundry for lower income families in Medina who have struggled to wash kids' clothes when they go to our schools. And we partnered with Garfield School and the UCC Church and North Court Laundry. And in the last 2 weeks, we have distributed $500 worth of, thanks to donations, we've distributed $500 worth of coupons to families to do laundry. And we got a donation from Drug Mart recently of laundry detergent, enough laundry detergent to do 900 loads of laundry. So the program is off and running, and it appears to be from each of those partners I've talked to be very successful. On the issue that we have discussed occasionally on sustainability, we had the meeting with the Girl Scouts. There has been an organization, a nonprofit formed called Sustain Ed Ohio, and the folks that the Ward 3 Councilman Eric Heffinger and I have worked with this group, and we have tentatively gotten approval from the county to start a community garden on the county property just east of the parking deck. And the folks that are heading up the organization are meeting with the commissioners again tomorrow to make sure all the pieces are put in place so that the construction of the garden can begin in June, and growing plants and putting up the fence and building the beds can also take place in June, which is really pretty exciting. To have a successful community garden is a lot of work, a big commitment, and it appears to me that the folks we're working with are committed and passionate about making this a success. And finally, the Champion Creek cleanup, which Ward 3 Councilman Mark Colasar started and spearheaded a number of years ago, will continue, and it's on Saturday, July 20th. And Rockin' the Court, the big music event on South Court Street, will this year be on South Court Street and Broadway Street to celebrate music, but also to celebrate the fact that what we just did tonight was we're going to replace that street in brick and continue that history of the street. And that is on June 8th from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you. And the last comment is, remember, Mr. Durham mentioned that we have a budget meeting tomorrow. It's the Water Department. Very exciting. 5:30. Hope everybody can attend. With that said, the meeting is adjourned. Thanks. Bye.
I was contacted by 4 people.